Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 150. What Errors Conceal, Truth Reveals. The podcast objectives are analyze why it is important to have a spiritual framework to receive the truth, reveal how we obtain victory over errors, analyze the difference between the millennial kingdom and the eternal reign, and reveal the timing when we will always be with the Master. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. The spiritual framework. Now, I ended the most recent podcast presenting a scriptural exhibit on 1 Corinthians 15, 50 through 53 to further reveal the Father's controversy with the rapture theory and to strengthen our case against this false doctrine by rightly dividing the word of truth. Now that we have added a time conflict to a purpose conflict, the verdict on the case of the rapture theory is clear. The rapture theory is a false doctrine that lacks purpose and contradicts the Father's times and seasons. In effect, the rapture theory fails every requirement of truth. It checks none of the boxes, not one. This should tell you how sadistically clever Satan is at deceiving men and women into mishandling the word of truth, and why we must always be on our guard. This should also reveal to you why I have initiated this end time series analyzing various spiritual orders that focus on providing you with the spiritual framework to receive the truth as opposed to simply telling you the truth. Here is why. The primary reason why many who were called are being led astray by false prophets and doctrines of devils is not because they never received a love for the truth. On the contrary, it's because they never developed the spiritual framework to receive the truth such that their love for the truth could grow and be perfected. Now, although you may not have noticed it, that is exactly what I have done for the leading weeks of this end time series. Certainly, I have shared some truth and revelation, but the focus has been spiritual structure. Here is why. By providing you with the spiritual framework to receive the truth, you have the power to see through every scriptural error and every satanic lie. This is crucial because it takes more than good intentions to resist the seducing spirits which have infiltrated our world and are deceiving the masses. Explicitly, it takes the Spirit and the various disciplines and orders he has given us to ascertain the truth of every matter. Now, I am not one to give the enemy more credit than he is due, but he is due on this. He is a great deceiver. Yes, he works in tandem with the lusts, emotions, and dishonesty of men and women who are spiritually compromised. But still, deception is real. It's very real. And we have been warned by the Spirit to guard ourselves from this most formidable weapon the enemy has formed against us. And you will, because you have the spiritual framework. For your edification, here are some of the pieces of this framework we have touched on thus far in this series. Building blocks of prophecy, times and seasons, appointed times, and the spiritual models of an ark, end times, last days, creative day, creative week, and spiritual age. Our victory over error. Now, although we have proven the rapture theory is false, we must continue with our analyses of the scriptural exhibits we initiated in the most recent podcast. Here is why. The process by which we overcome error begins with identifying the error, but it does not end there. On the rather, our victory over every form of error is a comprehensive understanding and embrace of the truth the error was designed to conceal. The question of the hour is, what truth is the rapture theory designed to conceal? The answer, the truth concerning these last days, specifically the timing concerning the millennial kingdom and the reign of Elohim. Therefore, we must continue with our scriptural exhibits to strengthen the conclusion we arrived at in the most recent podcast. That is, the millennial kingdom and the reign of Elohim are 1,000 years apart, and they correspond to two different end times events. Now, the exhibits I have been led to share are designed to provide clarity on the difference between the millennial kingdom and the eternal reign. As you see by the timeline below, we have our current year, 2023, in the last days that we're living in. Very soon, we will see the second coming of Yahushua Mashiach. And from that point in time, there will be 1,000 years of peace on earth and goodwill toward the remnant of man in the millennial kingdom. And this will take place in a renewed heaven and a renewed earth. This is this 1,000-year period you're seeing right here. We're here to prove the difference between this time period and this time period. This is the reign of Elohim that goes on for eternity without end. And it happens in the new heaven and the new earth. And it's preceded by the judgment and the end of the world. Now, this is the truth that the enemy, through the contaminated doctrine of the rapture, tried to conceal. And thus, by the power and the wisdom of the Spirit, this truth I will now reveal, continuing with the scriptures which were misappropriated to deceive many into believing the rapture theory. Now, I will continue with Exhibit B. We shall always be with the Master. This is taken from 1 Thessalonians 4:13 through 18. It reads saying, "Now, brothers, we do not wish you to be ignorant concerning those who have fallen asleep, lest you sorrow as others who have no hope. For if we believe that Yahushua died and rose again, so also Elohim shall bring with him those who sleep in Yahushua. For this we say to you, by the word of the Master, that we, who are alive and remain, at the coming of the Master, shall in no way go before those who are asleep. Because the Master himself shall come down from heaven with a shout, with the voice of a chief messenger, and with the trumpet of Elohim, and the dead and Messiah shall rise first. Then we, the living who are left over, shall be caught away together with them in the clouds to meet the Master in the air. And so we shall always be with the Master. So then, encourage one another with these words. Now, as you may very well know, this is one of the primary scripture passages used to support the rapture theory. And yet, it contains multiple lines that prove this passage is not referring to the second coming of the Son of Adam or the millennial kingdom. And now, my friends, it is time to rightly divide. This passage is referring to the coming of Yahuwah Elohim and the beginning of the eternal reign and the new heaven and the new earth. I will prove this matter using three key pieces of evidence. One, sub-exhibit B1, when the time comes. Two, sub-exhibit B2, the sound of the trumpet. And three, sub-exhibit B3, the forever factor. Proceeding with our first sub-exhibit, the question we must ask is simply this: who is this passage referring to? That is to ask, who is coming at the appointed time Shaul is referring to in this discourse? The answer is right in front of our eyes. Elohim is coming at this appointed time. Verse 13 clearly states, Elohim shall bring with him those who sleep in Yahushua. As there is neither scriptural nor spiritual record or precedence for Elohim to be present at the second coming of Yahushua, we understand right off the bat that this passage has nothing to do with his second coming. That is, the second coming of Yahushua. Elohim is coming for himself and at his appointed time. Moving on to our second sub-exhibit. The question we must ask now is, what sound will accompany the coming of Elohim? What will we hear at the appointed time? The answer, again, is right in front of our eyes. It is the sound of the trumpet of Elohim. Now, here we have our first treasure box in this lesson. The root word for trumpet in this passage is only found twice in the scriptures. In this passage and in 1 Corinthians 15:52, which uses the phrase, the last trumpet. Thus, we can clearly see how the trumpet of Elohim, referenced in 1 Thessalonians 4, is the last trumpet referenced in 1 Corinthians 15. This proves clearly that this event is leading to the reign of Elohim, not the millennial kingdom, for two reasons. One, it is impossible for the last trumpet to sound before the last event with the sounding of a trumpet. And two, there is no scriptural record of a trumpet sounding directly before the second coming of the Son of Adam. This brings us to our third sub-exhibit. The question we must ask now is, why are we meeting Elohim in the air? Why can't we meet him here on the earth? The answer, because he is going to create a new heaven and a new earth. Yet before he does, he will completely erase the elements as they are presently constituted. See 2 Peter 3:10-13. During this time, there will be no place for us to abide. There will be no more earth, and the new earth has not yet been unveiled. Therefore, we will meet the Father in the air, and we will remain with him until we settle in our new home, the new heaven and the new earth. This is why Shaul writes, and so we shall always be with the Master. True, we must endure a successful trial at the judgment and witness the crushing fate of the unrighteous. Yet, for all intents and purposes, the moment we meet Elohim in the air, we will be with him forever. And that is all my care. Now, here is the final word. The truth is right in front of us, but you must turn the light on. Trust me, this is easier said than done. And that is why Elohim has brought you here. For there is greater light within a company than there is light that shines from one. Seeing as errors are the primary vices destroying many who were called, we must be diligent in every spiritual discipline and order. And in all our getting, we must achieve understanding. And remember, it doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter how we feel. All that matters is that we walk in the light and uncover each truth the errors are designed to conceal. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today and ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. Remember, where there is no conviction, there can be no faith. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. Next, if the Spirit is leading you and you have not signed up for our mailing list, you can go to www.transformationbytruth.com to sign up today. We'll alert you as soon as podcasts are posted, and we'll share our presentations, notes, and other materials at no cost. It is for your edification. And most importantly, you will be connected to me and those who have joined themselves to this ministry as we prophesy and align current events with the prophetic word. These discussions are taking place outside of this podcast ministry. Therefore, if the Spirit is leading you, and only if the Spirit is leading you, I encourage you to come and see. You will be in good spiritual company. Lastly, if you have any questions, please submit them via our contact form on our website. If you have any comments, please share those on the video page for this podcast, also on our website. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 150, What Errors Conceal, Truth Reveals. And our next podcast is entitled End Times 160, One Taken, One Left, Part 1. I will post this podcast on Friday, May 19th, 2023. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.